Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kara Goodwin, and I am the host of the Meditation Conversation, which will soon be the Soul Elevation podcast. And I'm here to talk to you today about reality and the distorted nature of reality. And I want to not only introduce this concept to you, but show you some really interesting physical representations of what that means so that you can take it a little bit deeper, so you can take your understanding deeper. And then also to talk about, what do we do with that? What do we do with that information that our reality is not what it seems? So the way that I understand reality, my experience with quantum experiences that I've had in quantum reality, where I'm perceiving things that are way different than the physical reality, is that reality is not what it seems. And there's a lot going on in the invisible space around us. There is a lot that's being filtered that we don't have access to through our five senses. And one of the ways that I think it's really interesting to think about this distortion between what we think is truth and what we think reality is and what it actually is to begin with Dr. Emoto's water studies. So Dr. Emoto was a scientist in Japan, and he studied the effect of intention and words on water. And the way that he did this was that he would speak to water, or he would put labels. He would assign words to different samples of water, and then he would freeze them and look at what they looked like under a microscope. And so there was a range, there was a spectrum of words and intentions put with this water. So there might be things like, you're beautiful, I love you, I forgive you, those kinds of things, all the way through to, I hate you, you're ugly, I want to kill you, that kind of thing. And so he would kind of infuse the water with that, either by putting little labels with samples of water that said those things, or by speaking them. And then then he'd freeze it, and he would look at the crystals under a microscope. So I want to share my screen so that I can show you some of uh, hopefully you can see this. Oh, wait, just bear with me here. Okay, I hope you can see this. This is these are some images of Dr. Emoto's work. So if you can see this image, you have thank you, and look at this nice crystal pattern. It looks like a snowflake. Same with wisdom, same with truth, same with eternal. So you can see that there are fractals, and there is symmetry. There is organization. There is intelligence in these designs. Angel, I love you, peace. You can see this organized intelligence. And then you start to get to the lower end of the spectrum. You fool, you make me sick, evil, polluted water. There's no organization. There's no design. There's no real intelligence. It's just a mess. There's no organizing principle. There's no organizing principle when you get to the lower end of the spectrum. And here's this final image, is just worth noting. This is polluted water that was prayed upon. And so you can imagine, well, you can see here, polluted water before prayer, polluted water after prayer. So it gets clearer and it starts to organize. It has that organized intelligence. And so this is what I want to drive home, that the true reality is this divine reality that is organized, that has a design, Okay. And it very much is fractal in nature, the way that we see it with those crystallized um, microscopic images from Dr. Emoto. You see that crystallization. A lot of them are six-sided crystallized fractals. So if you take 1/6 of those, it's a repeating structure. And my experience in the quantum is that there is this fractal aspect to it. There are repeating patterns, things are in a pattern. But when our view is distorted, things, it loses that intelligence, that organization, and things start to just become more disorganized. And in the way that I see it is that the further we come from the actual truth of source and divinity, so the further separated our perception is from source, from that true reality of the divinity that we are, then the more distorted we get, so that we start to believe things that are not actually reflecting the true nature of that divine reality. And here in the physical realm, in the physical reality, the human experience that we're having, there's a lot of distortion. Now, how does distortion get to us? How does our view, how does our perception become distorted? Through life, really. It's through some things that you might be aware of, like the role of the media, pollution, our upbringing, our peers who we spend time around. All of those things can feed into our worldview. They feed into our perception of reality. So we have this higher aspect of our consciousness, which is truth. You know, our higher consciousness lives in higher realms, in spirit realms, and it understands the true nature of reality. We come into this human experience and we have a human perspective on things, but that human perspective is informed by our past experiences, the things that we've been told by other people that we believe, our repeating thoughts, and all of that comes from the outside, our upbringing, our society, our culture. All of those things are feeding into our perception of reality, but it might not be true, right? So it's kind of like, we have this in the scientific world all the time where new discoveries are being made. And as these new discoveries are being made, we understand that what we used to think was not quite right. And we just didn't have enough data. We didn't have the right understanding of things because we just knew what we knew, right? And so it can be that new discoveries come in and they change our perception, but we might begin to see things in a different way, but it's more aligned with the truth. And so this comes to the final thing of what can we do about it? And to me, and from my perspective, the best way to get that clarity, to clear out the distortion, is to strengthen our connection to our higher self, to our own higher consciousness, to become more connected with the spiritual aspect, which is the truth of who we are. And from my perspective, this is the fastest way to do it. So there are some really well-meaning people who get into chaos in their lives. They're thrown a curveball. They're trying to cope with something within their lives that's difficult. I've had this happen where people contact me and they're like, "How do I change my perception?" Or that's not even the right way to say it. How do I trick myself into going back to how things were so that I don't, maybe they feel like a can of worms has been opened. Somebody tells them something from, reveals something about a relationship, let's say, and it throws this person for a loop, and they'd rather they never knew, right? And I've had people who are like, how can I get rid of this information, or how can I assure that I never um, feel this way anymore so that I can cope with this information better? And there's really not a quick fix for that. And maybe there is. There might be, this is where you can kind of get into like magic spells and things like that, but that's actually bringing in more distortion because you're covering reality in a different way. But really, the authentic way to move forward is through cultivating a genuine, authentic relationship with your higher self, with your own consciousness, with that own intelligence, with your own intelligence, divine intelligence that's beyond this human realm, but that is accessible within your human experience. We might feel like, oh, okay, I can understand that I have this higher self, but it lives somewhere else. Maybe we think it lives in heaven, and maybe we don't even think that it does anything while we're here on earth, and then we'll go and be that when we die. I know I thought that for a long time. Or maybe we think that it's doing its own thing and we're over here on earth doing our own thing, and they're two separate things. But in reality, you have this higher self aspect that you are a part of, and you can strengthen your connection to that higher self so that it can guide you and it can help you to be able to see more clearly and to get rid of some of this distortion. But it's not an easy thing. It's something that takes time to develop. And for me, meditation has been a huge, huge way that I strengthen that connection to my higher self. And I don't know of a higher way to do it, an effective substitute for doing it. Now, it's not a one and done. It's not something that you meditate one time and then your connection is super solid to your higher self. It takes dedication. It takes a willingness to learn how to meditate. Meditating's not hard. We may make it more complicated than it needs to be. We may tell ourselves stories about how we're not, designed for meditation, or it's too hard or whatever. But really, those are self-limiting beliefs, which fall away as we develop a meditation practice and deepen it. But for me, I remember there's a spiritual teacher named Z Earthstar, and one of the things I've heard her say before is the shortcut is the long way, the long cut. And it's kind of like, we want these shortcuts. We want to be like, okay, that sounds great. I want to get rid of distortion. I want to strengthen my connection with higher self. So what's the fastest way to do that? I want it now. And it's like the quickest way to genuinely, authentically do it is through the practice of meditation, which does take some time to develop. It's not a quick and dirty solution, but it is this way that you clear things out, and it's so worth it, but it's not necessarily immediate. But what's cool is that the more you do it, the more time you dedicate to it, the more the more dedicated you are, then the more you get out of it and the more you want to do it. So, but that's really how we clear out that distortion, because we strengthen our internal guidance system. We strengthen our ability to connect with that part of us that knows so much more beyond the human limitations and beyond the human mind, that we can see things in a different way. So I hope that keeps things kind of simple and easy to understand. But this is really, to me, this is what enlightenment means. We hear the word enlightenment thrown around a lot, and we may think, what is that? And from my perspective, that is the ability to see clearly, to have clarity, to see things through the distortion. And I think that there are enlightened beings on this earth. I think there have been enlightened beings on this earth, few, not a ton of them. Definitely more people who are not enlightened than are enlightened. But we still, even with the most enlightened beings on this planet, I still feel that because we perceive reality through the filter of the human brain, and this is such an enormously vast universe that it's beyond human comprehension. So, we are limitless. And I feel that, in spirit form, there's just so much more complexity and reality beyond what we can even begin to comprehend as a human, which is exciting because there are just so many surprises in the universe for us. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that you continue to have increased clarity, that may we all have increased clarity as we continue to take steps forward on our paths and in our lives. And thank you so much for watching this, for joining me today. And I wish you many blessings. I'll see you next time.